Hello and welcome to State of the Unions, a series of programmes looking at the main teaching unions as they hold their Easter conferences. For this Teachers TV News special, we've come to Belfast for the annual gathering of the NAS-UWT. Later I'll be talking to Chris Keats, the union's General Secretary, about the issues that teachers are talking about here. In the main hall, debate has focused on pay, with unanimous support for a motion opposing any salary award below the rate of inflation. Delegates backed the union's national executive to take appropriate action if future pay awards fell below 2%. Another big issue was health and safety in schools. The union produced a survey suggesting many schools were failing to conduct fire drills or regular checks on workplace hazards such as asbestos. The union also released a survey showing that primary teachers are missing out on TLR payments despite taking responsibility for a subject area. When Education Secretary Alan Johnson spoke to conference, he accepted that the online harassment of teachers was causing some of them to leave the profession. So he called the providers of the websites to take further action to block or remove offensive videos or comments about teachers.
The online harassment of teachers is causing some to consider leaving the profession altogether because of the defamation and humiliation they are forced to suffer. I'm therefore calling on the providers of these sites to take firmer action to block or remove offensive school videos in the same way that they've commendably cut pornographic content in the last few years. Removing the platform will blunt the appeal.
In total, there are nearly 1,000 delegates here, representing more than 150,000 NAS-UWT members across the UK. There have been some passionate speeches about pay from the conference platform, but are delegates really ready for a fight?
It's not actually the top issue, because I think there are lots of other issues like discipline and behaviour and that sort of thing that teachers are finding a problem. But obviously pay is important because it's an indication of how well we're doing our job, for one thing. And I do think teachers will come out in support of the NAS.
I think it's a matter of great concern to all teachers, without doubt. It's a reflection of our status and our importance. And I don't think we're going to stand for our level of pay to be eroded in that way.
So if pay awards in the future years were 2% or so, do you think that would be likely to lead to support for action amongst teachers?
I think that's one of the things that would definitely motivate teachers to take action, yes. Yeah. I don't think it's the only issue. From my conversations, people in discipline is very, very high on people's agendas. The number of teachers who are assaulted, for example, is rising. And I think this is a grave concern to my colleagues.
I think pay is going to become an increasingly important issue over the next couple of years. With inflation running at 3.5–4%, and the 3-year pay structure that's been proposed is coming in as 2%. I think that's going to affect all teachers. On a personal level, with the restructuring that's come in over the last 2 or 3 years, there are a small proportion of teachers in the country who are actually facing quite large pay cuts.
Pay, I now believe, is going to be on very, very high on the NAS-UWT agenda, and quite rightly so. I think teachers for years and years have been sick to the back teeth of the kind of current pay awards that are being dished out. I think it is now time that teachers stood up and were counting now in terms of their annual pay award.
And do you think that the wider membership would be in a mood for a fight if necessary?
Absolutely, I'm ready to start the fight.
Delegates' views on which issues are top of their agenda. So when I talked to Chris Keats here in Belfast, I put some of those points to her. Obviously pay has been a big issue at your conference. You passed that motion calling for appropriate action from the executive if pay rises should be less than 2%. Do you feel that there is a mood, though, for action over pay amongst your wider membership?
I don't think there's a mood amongst teachers at the moment for action on pay, simply because the gains we've been able to secure for them through agreements with the government over the last 4 years have actually made quite a significant difference to teachers' pay. We had a 2.5% settlement in the current award, and that maintained those gains. What the debate about this week was really looking forward to making sure that all the hard work that's gone into restoring teachers' pay levels to approaching a level they should be is not eroded away if review bodies take too much account of the Chancellor's call for a 2% cap.
Now, I know you feel that it isn't currently the biggest issue for many of your delegates. That was interesting in the cross-section we spoke to, maybe not a scientific cross-section, but most of them thought it was the big issue, and they talked about, you know, how their rents are going up, council tax going up, utility bills are going up, and they really seem to be quite concentrated in terms of worry about their pay is going to be eroded.
Well, I think that that is a good sign that people are starting to see that they want to maintain the levels they've got. I would say it is becoming a big issue for teachers for all the reasons you've just outlined. And that actually is a good message, because I think if we can get teachers talking about pay, getting it back to the top of their agenda of concerns, then it'll send a very strong message to both the Chancellor and to the review body.
Another issue related to pay that came up was the whole issue of TLRs, particularly for primary school members, which came out of a survey of your members. Just explain to us what came up there.
Well, 15,000 teachers actually responded to a survey we did in a period of 4 weeks when we were asking them whether they thought they were getting proper access to all the benefits of the pay system. And the overwhelming majority were telling us that no, they weren't. They were still being asked to undertake whole school responsibilities for no additional pay. Now, we'd entered into an agreement with government that was designed actually to stop primary teachers being the poor relations in the pay system. And this survey shows that clearly, although the mechanisms are in place, school managements, school governing bodies are not actually making sure that primary school teachers are appropriately paid.
So are you recommending to your members that they should not take on those responsibilities unless there's more money?
Well, we're recommending two strategies. First of all, that we're going to take the evidence we've got, which is overwhelming, to the social partnership in which we work with government. And secondly, we're calling on our members to stop taking on unpaid responsibilities, stop doing the ones they are doing until this matter is addressed.
Now, the Education Secretary came to your conference and he did pick up one of the concerns of teachers, particularly this issue of cyberbullying, the use of websites with offensive material. He said he would take it up with the providers of those websites, but is that enough? Is that really going to be effective?
Well, we've had this conversation with the Secretary of State, and actually we're very appreciative of the attention he's giving to it. Of course, it will help if he can get those websites to self-regulate. We don't hold out a great deal of hope for that, and I was very pleased to say that he did pick up our suggestion of looking for easier routes to redress for victims whose names appear on those sites, who then suffer detriment, albeit their health suffers or maybe even their job is put at risk. And we think that that will be the best way forward.
Another issue I found talking to some of your delegates, which is a concern not top of their agenda, but an important concern, is this whole work-life balance. And I know it came up in conference as well. I mean, it probably comes second perhaps to pay as their concern, but can things be done on that as well?
Well, we have a lot of levers for change in place in schools. We've got a number of contractual changes that have been designed, to, if used together, to start to reduce teachers' working hours, to give them more time to have a work-life balance. What we're finding, and what delegates have been reporting here this week, that in too many schools, the issue of work-life balance is being confused, for example, with well-being. So what you find is that schools are putting Indian head massage on in the lunchtime, or making arrangements for teachers ironing to be done and delivered back to the school, where in fact what teachers would like to do is have more time at home to make the decision that do they want to go for a massage, do they want to do their own ironing, and it's really about a quality of life, but the key issue is downward pressure on working hours. Now we think it needs a concerted effort, and we certainly will be continuing to pursue this as an issue.
Cover is another bread and butter issue of pay and conditions, and there was a motion calling for a gradual move to zero cover.
Yes.
Is that realistic?
Well, it's not only is it realistic, but the aspiration of teachers rarely covering is an agreement we've got with government. The frustration that was expressed in conference, which I share, is that we're not moving quickly enough towards meeting that aspiration. And so the limits that were put in the motion are actually ones we will take back. There are good signs because the Office of Manpower Economics produced a survey to say cover in secondary schools was down to 30 minutes a week, in primary schools to 7.6 hours a year. But the government's agreed with us that cover isn't a good use of a teacher's time, and so we've got to be making sure that we get to rarely cover as quickly as possible. So I think that motion is going to be quite helpful in focusing the issues.
It's interesting, there's quite a lot of issues here, cover, pay, workload, which are things that are fundamental to the whole social partnership, which you've been in for a while now, and yet there are still concerns. That suggests that the social partnership is not completely delivering for you, not getting all the things you're wanting. Your members are still unhappy about these issues.
Well, members are still unhappy, but actually members are very happy that the social partnership is actually delivering. I mean, without the social partnership, we wouldn't be able to be talking about the reduction to the levels of cover we've got, and actually about getting down to rarely cover.
So you think
that
you're
wouldn't
really
be an
getting
issue.
advantages from
We
being
are.
in it?
I think the frustration is that, and the social partnership nationally shares it, and the Secretary of State mentioned it in his speech, that actually what's happening is it's delivery at local level and getting people to prioritise. And so the issues that have been raised here are not that the NASUWT is on the wrong track or social partnership isn't working. The issue has been, yes, we've moved a great way forward, but there's still a lot more to be done, and we actually echo that. That is absolutely correct.
And do I take it from what you're saying that actually your concern is more about the actions of what governors are doing or local authorities are doing in not implementing some of this?
There are still too many head teachers, too many governing bodies who are not understanding that actually they're breaking the law by not putting these provisions in place. And one of our major concerns is about schools that think they can flout statutory provisions. And certainly we've been encouraging our people at local level to get into schools and to tell teachers, first of all, what their entitlements are. It's amazing how many teachers don't actually know what their contract says. And I think certainly when I've talked to teachers and said, this is what should be happening in your school, some say, that's exactly what's happening in my school and it's made a difference. Others say, I didn't know, but I will be going back into school now to find out why this isn't happening. And that's the message we've got to get through.
It's interesting, Teachers TV have been to all the main teacher unions, and it's quite interesting the different subjects that come up. And your conference has very much been dominated by pay, conditions, if you like, sort of bread and butter trade union issues, perhaps more so than education issues. Does that tell us something about the difference between the teaching unions?
Well, it might do. I mean, NASUWT has always taken the view, our main slogan is putting teachers first. And we make no apologies for that because we believe that our responsibility is to create the working conditions and the rewards and incentives to ensure that teachers are valued as highly skilled professionals, and that if we do that, we focus on the teachers to leave them to do the job of raising standards with pupils. So the fact that this conference focuses on the needs of teachers, I think is an extremely good thing. It's what a trade union should be about. We're delivering as a union on that agenda, and our members can go back much better supported in doing that high quality job they do in the classrooms.
Chris Keats, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, that's it from State of the Unions here in Belfast, reporting on the NASUWT's annual conference. You can see reports on the other teacher union conferences at www.teachers.tv. For now though, from Belfast, goodbye.